Good afternoon, Haz Memon. You are the founder and CEO of Swiss Escape. Swiss Escape is a company organizing co-living and co-working locations in Switzerland and in Crete. You have been created in 2016, and there is a lot of happening around your activities now. We are going to discuss about it. Of course, with the impact of the pandemic, and all of a sudden, remote working becomes something possible for not only freelancers but a lot of other people. But first of all, can you introduce yourself and Swiss Escape?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Haz, and I like you mentioned, I am one of the co-founders of Swiss Escape. Swiss Escape started in 2016 because I come from a corporate travel background, and I wanted to shift the tourism within Switzerland to a new form of way to attract people to remote villages, remote towns within Switzerland. And with that, we saw the shift of people not only working from the office, but people being able to take their work remotely, and since then we've seen a huge boost in the remote work world. But of course, thanks to the pandemic, it has boosted even further. We have less of a marketing effort on or education effort to try and explain what is remote work, because now it is so obvious.
So you have a location in Grimetz, which is
Yes.
in Valais, in the French part of Switzerland. It's a ski resort, right? Was it first a holiday location, or was it from the beginning just really co-working associated with co-living?
Now, we realized that there are a lot of properties within the Swiss mountains which were unused most of the year. So we repurposed existing properties which were used for vacation homes. We repurposed those properties and converted them into a co-working and co-living spaces. So it was a bit of work with the properties, but otherwise these were existing already. It was not built from ground up.
So it's more seasonal. It means that during the peak season, your service is not available. It's more like off season that.
No, we are
available
all year round. That was the previous model, that when it was a vacation home, it was operating only for a season. But the whole idea was to revitalize the place and those buildings and properties within the town. So we operate for the entire year.
And what's the capacity you have in Grimetz, for instance?
So in Cremant, in Switzerland, we have a capacity of 20 people that we can host. At the same time, for Greece, we have the capacity of 15 at the moment.
Okay, so we were discussing prior to starting the podcast itself, and you were saying, yes, there was a huge impact, of course, of the pandemic. And one number you mentioned, that previously you had 10% of your guests were employees, people working for companies, and this number jumped to 70% the last months, especially Switzerland. So you take from that evolution the insight that indeed there is a shift in all hybrid working is not accepted also by employer. Is it right?
Yes, I think that's the huge shift according to like recent survey within Switzerland. At least I know the statistics in Switzerland. Only 12% of Swiss population said they wanted to go back to the office full time. So most people want to either do a hybrid model of working a bit in the office and a bit at home, or working fully at home. And of course, the biggest population, who's the biggest number, which is 36% of people who are young professionals, said they would like to work full time from home. And when we have this new young professionals coming into the market, and they're like trying to understand that, hey, I'm working from home, but my home cannot be in the city. It could be in a remote village, in a vacation town, next to the lake, next to the mountains. That it makes it very easy for them to just move their space. And within Switzerland, only 26% of population cannot work from home because their job requires them to be, whether they're in construction or in a certain professions which doesn't allow them to work from home. But a third of the population in Switzerland can work remotely.
Okay, so you were saying that indeed it was also due to of course, the travel ban that we experience in Europe, that also the Swiss companies allow their people to work also from ski resort, like where you are now.
Yeah.
Will it last now that things are back to, or will be back to normal, hopefully? Or is it something you expect to remain and to strengthen to some extent?
Yeah, I think there's a huge mindset shift within the companies, that they see that technology has not only enabled them to be more productive, be more efficient, but also for them to cut down a lot of costs. We are now seeing a lot of companies in Switzerland that they are stopping renting the entire buildings where their offices used to operate and repurpose it into more of an innovation center, that employees can come in for discussions on certain meetings. Also, the current survey also suggests that people are either just as same or more productive working remotely. So I don't see it going back to how it was. If anything, I see that working from home or working remotely is definitely going to be the norm.
So if we see Switzerland and the fact that people in Switzerland will go 1 month in the mountain to take the fresh air and reboot themselves while walking. What about Greece? I assume that it's not the same kind of tenants or guests that you have in your co-living space in Crete.
Yeah, Greece is very interesting because the whole country in itself is remodeling itself into a destination for remote work. So currently, I'm also working with some government officials in Greece to discuss the possibility of creating work visas, remote work visas for professionals to come and live in Greece for long term. And they have a reduced tax implications as well when they choose to get this specific work permit. So Greece, I think, as a whole, is pushing for remote work because they want to shift from just a tourist destination to a remote work destinations, and that's why we're seeing a huge boom of new co-working spaces being set up as well as co-living spaces being set up. Now, Greece opens its borders next week, and already we have a huge amount of applicants wanting to stay from this month onwards at Greek Escape. However, currently we are full, so we cannot accommodate, but there's a huge demand, and that's one thing that we can really notice.
But what about so the long-term location? So should you incorporate in Greece in order to benefit for the tax cut, or is it because when you speak with people in Portugal, you speak even people in Spain, everybody wants to become the remote worker preferred destination of anyone working on a laptop in the world.
Yes.
But is it so substantial according to you? And what should be the thing to do in order to definitely achieve something more sustainable that maybe we have experienced so far?
Yeah, I think as a destination, whatever country we are talking about, they need to analyze, of course, what are the tax implications, how are people stay when they come and stay in the country, what sort of tax implications do you have, because within the EU you're allowed to stay a maximum of 3 months in a certain place before being a tax resident. So there are some special laws that are now being developed to enable people to also give back to the country that they're working from. At the same time, they need to reinvest in infrastructure. And that's one thing we're seeing big in Greece, because Greece, as being like a part of a cluster of islands, it has some islands don't have still a fiber optic internet, which becomes very crucial for remote work. correct? So we are seeing that the countries are now starting to invest in 5G network and fiber optic to enable these new kind of travelers to come and work.
Is it only the fiber optic? So do you mean also that, for instance, take about the tax scheme and legal part, that Greece could extend the duration you can stay in the country before being a tax contributor? For instance, you can stay 1 year while keeping your tax registration in your own country or something like that. Is it the direction it could take, for instance?
It's currently in still in talks, but from what I can tell is there would be a reduced tax cost. So as someone who's coming and working from Greece would more than 3 months would still need to incorporate that whatever businesses are being conducted in Greece will have a tax implication, but there will be a 50% reduction in the tax compared to the regular tax rate in Greece. So that's the thing in talks still. It's not official yet.
Okay. So aside of Swiss Escape, you also are a member of an association of co-living operator. So what's the trend overall from your peers? Do you see that indeed this is the expectation that the market will boom further? And another question is, what about the mixture between co-working and co-living? Because most of the time when we speak about co-living, at least in the sunny destination, there is always a part of co-working dimension which is associated with it. So how do you see those elements?
Yeah, co-living has become the pinnacle of the kind of housing you can choose, especially because of the pandemic, because everyone's looking for community and co-living is providing that. We have seen a huge boom in all co-living operators, and we are now 250 operators just in Europe with over 3,000 spaces.
250?
Yes.
Wow.
This is just within Europe, and offering over 10,000 beds. So, and a lot of these operators said that as soon as the pandemic hit, they needed to invest in their co-working area. So usually co-living spaces had some small co-working areas, but when they see that there's a huge part of the guests who are now working from home, they see that there was a huge demand for first desks in the room, second a communal co-working space. So now it's like it's a given. When you are starting a co-living, you have to have a co-working. Before it was that you have certain destinations like Bali or like those sunny destinations where you have this co-working, but co-living spaces which are in cities, which are in, let's say, in London, here in Zurich, they were just providing an affordable solutions for expats or people to stay at, and co-working was not necessarily an element that had to be added. Now it is. Now it definitely is.
So I guess it is to do with the evolution of the demographic. That, as you said, co-living was in the past more a co-location, co-living, yeah, what to say, roommates which were created to, by a third player to some extent, and the demographic was more about young professional trainees, people were really without any family and things like that. Whereas now, is it right if we see that it's a more mature kind of people, or might be in couple, or have already a job with a higher purchase power maybe, and they are looking for something more elaborated, more higher level to some extent. Is it right?
Yeah, I think the demographics has certainly shifted. Although co-living has two different segments. One is destination co-living and one is residential co-living. So destination co-living is more short-term stays, and then
Like you
residential
do.
co-living is yeah, we
Yeah.
are short-term stays, and then there's residential, which is long-term stays. So of course, long-term stays is where there's demographics of families, of couples, of people who are in the city because they have a job and they have an office to go to. However, the thing where both the destination co-living and the residential co-living align is that both of them provide a community for the guests to operate in. So there's always a community manager in place to facilitate events and things like that. And now we're seeing that before it was only the destination co-living spaces that were offering co-working, but now it's also the residential offering co-working.
Interesting. How about the collaboration between pure co-living players and local co-working operators? Because yes, you can create your
Yes.
own co-working facility, but now we also need, in a proper co-working facility, you need phone booths, you need meeting rooms, you need things like that that are,
Yes.
and the standard has increased. We expect today things that were not demanded maybe just 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So is the collaboration taking place, or out of due to the scarcity maybe of proper co-working offering locally, those co-living operators have to create their own facilities for that?
Yes, I think there's a huge potential that's untapped, which is working with local providers and local operators. Now in Grimans at Swiss Escape, we have a co-working space that opened last month. And now we're talking with them to try and cooperate with them for meeting rooms, for bigger event setups and things like that as well. So there's a huge potential to collaborate with local partners. At the same time, at least within Swiss Escape, the region where we are, there's also investment in co-work to start new co-working spaces. So one which I already mentioned in Grimans, but there's another one being still being constructed and which will launch at the end of the year. So I see there is more and more co-working spaces also popping up, but there's a huge potential for co-living operators to kind of join forces with them, because usually people who do come to these destinations, of course, always want an accommodation with
Mm.
the co-working.
We are at the end of this podcast. So what are the targets in the future for Swiss Escape then? So are you planning for opening a new location, or you have to build up upon your already existing ones, and that's the goal for the moment?
I think there's right now a huge demand of opening co-living spaces everywhere. We're still in the works with a few other operators around the world, in Canada and in France, to see if that is a viable location to open. But for us right now, we are very much focused on growing the Swiss market. We see a huge potential in the local market, so Swiss market and the Greek market, to attract more locals to try out co-living and co-working, because for internationals it's very attractive, but we now want to make it more attractive for locals as well to travel and live and work within their own countries as well.
Okay. What about hotels in this trend? Because that's something which is close to their core of business as well.
Yes. Yes, hotels are now shifting focus. We've been talking to the tourism operators here in Switzerland, where they are now releasing some sort of accreditation for hotels which are allowing remote work or have a remote work setup or area. So I wouldn't call it co-working necessarily, but the hotels are now offering some sort of a lounge area or private space where you can take calls. I think there's a huge potential there, but it's still not being explored as much as it should.
Okay. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Haz, for sharing some information about Swiss Escape and about enlightening us about the evolution of the co-living sector, which is really closely, as we discussed, it's closely related with co-working, and both things are part of this kind of same bigger family that has no name for so far, but we see that there is a lot
It's
of connection.
right? It's
The
co-living and the co-working. So it's the co. As long as we're doing it together.
Definitely. And great. All the best with your activities and the restart, hopefully, of everything. Now that we all get the vaccine in our veins.
Yeah.
And take care, and all the best for the future.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. Bye bye. Bye.